From the land of lakes, this is 10,000 Takes. Wally Langfellow, along with my partner Eric Nelson, who is still in Phoenix, Arizona, as we slice and dice the always busy, always topical Minnesota sports scene. Mr. Nelson, still on the road in sunny Arizona, sunny Phoenix, maybe soon to be the home of the new owners of the Minnesota Twins. You never know. But I thought I would kick off this holiday/New Year's edition of 10,000 Takes by going down the list of Minnesota's teams and giving a perspective on what was and what might be in 2025. Let's start out with the Vikings, since they are still in the midst of what may or may not happen with the regular season wrapping up and the playoffs on the horizon. Another hugely successful regular season for the Vikings under Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. I mean, the pickups that they made and, how well Sam Darnold has played all season. I mean, this is a feather in the cap of this organization in general, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the final chapter yet to be written. Will it end with more purple pain, or will it finally finish with jubilation?
Oh boy.
Pure purple ecstasy in that coveted Super Bowl. And I want to throw this out there now. This isn't about just getting to the Super Bowl. There are a couple generations of Viking fans who just want to get there because they weren't around when the team went to 4 in a 7-year span and lost all 4. Keep in mind, there's only a handful of winless teams that have gone to the Super Bowl that are 0-4, Minnesota being one of them, Buffalo the other. I think Cincinnati's now 0-3. So this is about winning it. This is about finishing off the season with a confetti shower and a Lombardi trophy. But, that's a long way down the road. But my point is, it's got to happen someday, right? I mean, this is a tortured fan base that is, I think, as passionate and as hungry as any fandom in the NFL. And I would include Pittsburgh and Green Bay and Denver in that group. I mean, the Viking fans show up every week. We see it at the House of Noise. They flock in like purple sheep, and they pay a lot of money to be in that building. And so they're the ones who deserve a title. But, they're saying the same thing in Detroit. They're saying the same thing in Buffalo. But so far, high grades for the Minnesota Vikings. I guess enjoy the ride.
Yeah. It's hard to poke holes in what has happened this regular season, that's for sure. The coming of age of Sam Darnold and Justin Jefferson continued to be spectacular. It's been a fun regular season. We'll see what the postseason brings. To that end, are there any negatives that you could come up with the Vikings, aside from the fake snowflakes at home game blowing your eardrums out, and of course those spectacular white uniforms with the white helmets that I still don't understand at all? But any negatives on the field?
Yeah, the fake flakes got to go. I mean, you're either an indoor team or an outdoor team. They've chosen to stay inside the comfy confines of U.S. Bank Stadium. I think if you're going to poke some holes in the team, it's that they've been very fortunate this season. They've gotten most of the good bounces. The only really bad thing I can think that went against them was the face mask call that wasn't against the L.A. Rams on a Thursday night. And all that really would have done was given the Vikings a chance to maybe tie the game. We don't know if they even would have done that. But everything seems to go their way. I think that Tennessee game, that may have been the worst officiated NFL game I've seen in recent history. The Titans got absolutely hosed. But so the Vikings, though, to their credit, they've capitalized on getting some of these breaks. Look at the Seattle game. Look at that face mask penalty. One play later, Sam Darnold up top with a dot to Justin Jefferson, and that's the game-winning score. So they've been able to cash in on other teams' faux pas, and that's a good sign. I think they're extremely well coached. The front office with Kwesi appears to be sound, and I think the Wilfs have finally figured things out. They've owned this team for a while now, Wally, but owners sometimes have to learn the trials and tribulations of running a team in the NFL too. It's one thing to be a fan; it's another thing to hire the right people.
Yeah, well, and I think that they've done that with Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. Okay, let's shift. We'll still talk football here. Let's shift to the Golden Gophers. and PJ Fleck's squad. Yeah, it's another season where they get a bowl game down in Charlotte. They go 7-5. I guess it's an okay season, but it should have been and could have been a lot better. They had a lot of these games. The Rutgers game comes to mind. The North Carolina game comes to mind. I mean, you win those two and you're a 9-3 football team, and you're looking at, perhaps a New Year's Day bowl game as opposed to playing a couple days after New Year's in Charlotte. And I don't know. How do you grade this season aside from the bowl game? Because you don't even know. So these bowl games now, some of the teams, their players aren't even showing up anymore because they're worried about getting hurt and going into the portal or going into the NFL draft and all that stuff. But what kind of grade do you give PJ Fleck's Golden Gophers?
No, it's a B-, B at the top end of the curve. There were some good things. The SoCal sweep against USC and UCLA. I never thought I'd see that happen with the Minnesota Gophers in a 2-week span. The win at Illinois to finally put Brett Bielema in his place after he dominated Minnesota with Wisconsin and the Illini. But like you said, it's the hiccup games, and it's not just PJ. This is any Gopher coach in recent memory. They've had these hiccup losses. You can't lose to Rutgers on the road. You can't lose to North Carolina week 1 because that wasn't a good Tar Heel team. They wound up letting Mac Brown go. Bill Belichick's there now, for goodness sake. So, Gopher fans, I want you to set the bar higher with this program. Indiana made the tournament. I know they got bounced early by Notre Dame, but they made it. Indiana should be no better than Minnesota. Arizona State, where I'm at now, was supposed to be at the bottom of the Big 12, and here they are in the playoffs. Set that bar high, demand more out of PJ and the Minnesota Gophers. And I think they have the chance to do it.
Yeah, they have the chance. They might have NIL money coming in, and we'll see if they get any players through the transfer portal. All that remains to be seen. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to continue down the list of Minnesota's teams, review and preview on this New Year's edition of 10,000 Takes, your sports ticket. Stay with us.
Seeing clearly matters. Being seen matters more. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
In Lakeville, Minnesota, dozens of meeting venues are ready to host your next corporate event, banquet, and holiday party. Lakeville has unique conference facilities, a variety of hotels, an abundance of team-building options, and dining that are sure to impress. For suggestions that suit your needs, please call the Lakeville Convention and Visitors Bureau at 952-469-2020 or go to visitlakeville.org. Lakeville, we mean business.
Special edition of 10,000 Takes, our New Year's edition, where we're kind of going through the list of Minnesota's teams and giving our review of 2024 and our preview of 2025. And Eric rejoins us from Arizona. All right. Let's start out this segment with your Minnesota Twins, who I think you would categorize 2024 as a failure. I mean, this is a team that won the division in 2023, had high expectations for 2024, but they cut the payroll by, 35 million. And, they suffered down the stretch without making any moves, without adding any pieces, and they have done nothing in the offseason. So, really, they're going to have to win Twins fans back, and I don't know how they're going to do it. The TV contract is a mess. No big pickups in free agency. I'm not sure that this team that seems like a team without a compass right now.
Yeah, I don't know if they know north from south and east from west. And boy, what an odd season, because when you go back to even as recently as August, they were a top-tier team in Major League Baseball. And then they cratered, and Detroit got hot, and that was the difference. And, boy, you talk about a franchise squandering goodwill from what I'll call a mini playoff run in 2023. It's not like they went to the World Series, but but they finally did win a playoff game against Toronto. We were there at trendy Target Field. Then they won the series. And then they got to round 2 before being punched out by Houston. But it was progress, and having playoff baseball back in Minneapolis and the excitement and the buzz that we saw, we felt, you could touch it, feel it. It was similar to what the Timberwolves did last spring. And I thought, wow, this is a springboard for the Twins. Going into 2024, they can add a piece or two, bump up payroll, and make a run at a World Series. But what did they do a year ago, really, right now? They announced, they telegraphed to the fan base, we're slashing payroll, we're not adding anything, and we're basically going to go into the tank. And they got away with it for a while, but it caught up to them. And now, I don't know how many Minnesota Twins fans there are out there that are going to show up to the ballpark. I know there are fans there, but I think the anger is giving way to apathy, and that's dangerous, Wally, if people don't care about you.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of their fan base shows up right now because of the atmosphere, because of what you like, and that's Target Field. They go there for either the party atmosphere, sitting up in that Budweiser deck, or they go there because they love the ballpark. But I don't think that they're particularly vested in the Minnesota Twins. And, maybe they shouldn't be at this point because, until they get the new ownership in place. And you talked about it on last week's show, the Ishbia brothers potentially buying this team. And they've spent a lot of money as owners of the Phoenix Suns, and they've cut prices on concessions as owners of the Phoenix Suns. This all looks well and good if you're a Twins fan, but that's still a long ways away to know that you're going to have a new owner. And until they do, it's going to be status quo with the Pohlad Group. I don't think that they're going to see any major changes between now and the time that they do turn it over to a new ownership group.
No, they're in a holding pattern. Now, they still have building blocks. I mean, Carlos Correa, Byron Buxton, Royce Lewis. But as we've touched on now for a few years, the caveat is, can you keep those guys on the field? And they haven't been able to stay on the field, and that's unfortunate because their games played, pale in comparison to some of the winning teams. Where, you look at Kansas City in their division, you look at a guy like Salvador Perez, he's a fossil by MLB standards, and he plays catcher part of the time, yet he's out there almost every day. Bobby Witt Jr., you can't pull him out of the lineup with a tow truck. He's going to be out there every day. With the Twins, you don't know who's playing. It's a mix and match lineup. And then the way Rocco handles his pitching staff, guys are never going to go deep into a game. And all of that, I think, is a turnoff. Analytics itself is a turnoff for me and a lot of other fans. It's really ruined baseball in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And don't be surprised if you hear the name Pablo Lopez come up in trade talks here over the next few weeks. There is an opportunity for the Twins to move him because he has one of those balloon contracts where he's going to be making more money coming up than he was in the first couple of years of that deal. And let's face it, talent-wise, probably their number one guy. Now, he didn't necessarily deliver in 2024 as he did in 2023, but he was the number 2 guy behind Sonny Gray in 2023. In 2024, he became the number 1 guy. A lot of pressure on him. I mean, he had a so-so season, not the kind of numbers that they needed from him. And with those big balloon payments coming, don't be surprised if they part ways with Pablo Lopez, either in the offseason or maybe at the trade deadline.
Yeah, and that would be unfortunate. It would send all the wrong smoke signals to the fan base about commitment. And then, you wonder about a guy like Walker Buehler, who basically closed it out for the LA Dodgers in that World Series win over the New York Yankees, a bulldog on the mound, coming back from Tommy John surgery. Boston signs him to a 1-year, $21 million deal. Were the Twins even in on that conversation? Because that's the kind of guy you're going to need to add to your rotation.
Right.
And take some of the heat off of Pablo Lopez. But we saw what happened with Sonny Gray. He walked away quick. And it's really the same MO. The Twins badly need a breath of fresh air from the ownership perspective. Maybe the Ishbia brothers out here in Arizona will get the club. It's a process. And maybe they'll have deep pockets. They certainly have with the Suns. We've seen it in the NBA. And the slashing of concession prices and things like that's a big hit here in Arizona. I think that's what the Minnesota Twins need. And if MLB's smart and they vet these guys, they'll let them into the club because you want to prop up your franchises, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, let's talk Minnesota Wild now. Your Wild got off to a fast start this season. Last season missed the playoffs, and let's face it, this has been a star-crossed franchise. You know, the Suter Parise deal that was signed, you know, almost 10 years ago now, just about. It's been haunting them now for the last couple of years because they have no cap room. Finally, they get that off the books after this season, but a fast start this season, a mid-season. It's not even mid-season yet, but let's call it a mid-early season slump. What are your thoughts on this Wild club as they go forward?
Well, I certainly think the injuries have caught up to them here recently. They've crashed back to earth. Can they regain their mojo? Well, they better, because Winnipeg's very good. They're 0-3 against the Jets. They haven't competed much against the LA Kings. They're 0-2 against them. They got just crushed recently by Florida, the Stanley Cup champs in St. Paul. I think the key for the Wild is, as we go into 2025, that means 25 years of Minnesota Wild hockey. And what do you have to show for it? You have one trip to the Western Conference Finals, and you have a lot of trips into the playoffs where you go 1 or 2 and done, and then a few years where you don't even get there. That's a resume that's very similar to the NBA team across the river that plays at Target Center, the Minnesota Timberwolves, who have been around a little longer, but add it up. It adds up to winter woes. Here in Minnesota, the Wild need to go on a Stanley Cup run. This is supposed to be the state of hockey.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's the state of amateur hockey. I don't know if it's the state of professional hockey, except for maybe the women. And we're going to get into that. All right, let's take a break. We will talk more. We're going to talk some Timberwolves, women's hockey, and Minnesota Lynx. That's next, right here on 10,000 Takes, your sports station. Stay with us.
You can visit llcoolj.info to understand what the government grants really hit for. You can visit llcoolj.org.com to make sense. Whatever you sell, the government's buying it. You don't need an LLC or an S corporation. We the people. We already pledged allegiance to this nation. It's up to us if the bell toll of freedom rings. That's word from Olivia's child, Sammy's favorite sibling, and I'm out.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision. It's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
In Lakeville, Minnesota, dozens of meeting venues are ready to host your next corporate event, banquet, and holiday party. Lakeville has unique conference facilities, a variety of hotels, an abundance of team building options, and dining that are sure to impress. For suggestions that suit your needs, please call the Lakeville Convention and Visitors Bureau at 952-469-2020 or go to visitlakeville.org. Lakeville, we mean business.
And we continue to roll along with this special New Year's edition of 10,000 Takes. We've gone down the list. We've talked Twins, Wild, Gopher football, and Vikings. How about your Minnesota Timberwolves? And you know what? Back in May, when they made their run to the Western Conference Finals in the NBA, maybe the highlight of the calendar year, 2024, what the Timberwolves were able to do with Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert, and Towns and Gobert finally getting on the same page, and the contributions from Naz Reid and Michael Conley. I mean, this has been, or was, I should say, if not the best, the second best run in Minnesota Timberwolves history. And Mr. Nelson, I know you agree with that part of it, but the question remains now, as they turn the page in the off season and coming into the regular season, having traded away one of the key components of that Western Conference run, I don't know. This just seems like Herschel Walker all over again, or Kevin Garnett to the Celtics all over again, or as you pointed out, Randy Moss to the Patriots all over again, or maybe even David Ortiz to the Red Sox. I mean, this turns out to be maybe a disaster. Now, it still hasn't been completely written, but I think I'm leaning that direction right now.
Yeah, I land on the same Donnie Downer situation and viewpoint that you just brought up. And I'm not only losing Cat and really what's been a debacle of a trade, at least early on, Ant isn't quite the same without him. I don't think Rudy G's quite the same. I mean, I thought the reason you brought in Rudy G was to have twin towers. That was the concept. And, year one, it was a debacle, but year two, it was very good. And I touched on the Twins in one of our other segments, building up the goodwill with the playoff run in 2023 and an opportunity to springboard it to the next level. But frugality, kept them from doing it. They clipped coupons, let's be blunt, and they went the other direction. With Minnesota, the Timberwolves, same thing. An opportunity to really carve a niche in this market, which is saturated with sports, because everybody was on the T-Wolves bandwagon, Wally. I mean, heck, I saw hockey fans in Target Center.
Yes.
I saw Kirill Kaprizov there during the playoff run. But what happens? It's not because of frugality. It's because of a dumb decision to
How about
create a future
stupidity?
Hall of Fame player, in Karl Anthony Towns. So it's the same result as the Twins, a different way of getting to that result. And it's very typical Minnesota, because right now the T-Wolves, to me, look like a middle-rung playoff team at best, and they messed with the chemistry. And can't you read the room, Tim Conley?
Yeah.
You had to know these guys got along with Cat, and he was one of your pillars.
Yeah.
He's on the franchise's Mount Rushmore,
Yeah.
right? Cat, KG, Kevin Love, and I don't even know who the other guy is. Tom Gugliotta, I don't know. Steph Marbury.
Gugliotta.
Lou Richardson. But it's ridiculous.
Sam Mitchell. All right. Okay, let's pivot to the team that is also owned by Glenn Taylor, that being the Minnesota Lynx, who make, I don't want to say it was a surprising run to the WNBA Finals, but it certainly wasn't one that you may have anticipated. But they were one of the better teams in the WNBA, which as a league took leaps and bounds this past season. And I know you don't want to give credit, but it was Caitlin Clark. That is the reason that this league got so much exposure. There is no doubt about it. Heck, Times Sports Person of the Year, Caitlin Clark.
Well, I agree. I mean, she elevated the WNBA to new heights. I think it helps that she has a perceived rival in Angel Reese, similar to Magic and Larry Bird way back in the day. I think it shouldn't have had to happen this way, but I think she got more eyeballs on Asia Wilson in Las Vegas, Nafisa Collier here in Minnesota, rightfully so. And whatever the dynamics are of why Caitlin Clark got more attention than maybe some of these other players, and we all can speculate on that, she made the league better, and that's good. And the WNBA now is something that you want to tune into.
Yeah, no question. And while you're on the topic of women's sports, the Minnesota Frost come in, brand new league, and they win the 6-team league, the PWHL. And so they, too, part of the picture as champions of the PWHL in year one. All right, back with more, our takes of the day. You will not want to miss that. That's next here on 10,000 Takes. Stay with us.
Finding the ideal place to stay is important for business travelers. Lakeville, Minnesota is conveniently located off I-35, just south of the Twin Cities, with a variety of hotel choices. Lakeville offers convenient amenities such as shopping, walking trails, golf, and more. Our unique meeting spaces, historic downtown, live music, and over 60 dining options are sure to impress. Book your next stay in Lakeville and experience convenience, comfort, and quality. Find your perfect hotel at visitlakeville.org.
Wally and Eric from 10,000 Takes here in the land of lakes. And if you want sports of all sorts, check us out. We cover all the bases, all the teams in the great state of Minnesota.
Vikings, Twins, Wild, Gophers, Timberwolves, Loons, you name it, we do it. Late night Saturday night on Fox 9 Plus and on the Fox Local app.
Seeing clearly matters. Being seen matters more. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
Welcome back. Final segment of this week's show, our special New Year's edition. Time now for our special takes of the day. And my friend Eric Nelson joins us again from Phoenix. So I'm going to do New Year's resolutions for 2025. And I believe you are going to do a look back on 2024, your favorite moments of 2024 in sports. But I'm going to try and be positive here with my resolutions.
Wow. We're going to have to nickname you Captain Sunshine if you can do that. Not so sure you can pull it off.
Yeah, don't count on it. Let's put it that way. Okay, I'll get it started. My first number one resolution, 2025, not to go to another Minnesota Vikings home game without earplugs because of all the noise inside US Bank Stadium. And now I add this, without sunglasses for those ridiculous white helmets and white jerseys that they wore during their winter whiteout at US Bank Stadium. Please, I didn't even know who was playing down there. Those white helmets were a joke. My second resolution for 2025 Minnesota sports. I resolve to try and find the Minnesota Twins somewhere on television. I don't know where they're going to be in 2025 at this juncture. 2024, they were on Bally Sports North and nobody had it. Now the FanDuel Sports Network has taken over. That's where the Wild and the Timberwolves are. Look, Minnesota Twins, if you want your fans to rediscover you, you may want to get on over-the-air television. I know you're talking about having your own network. Bah on that. Get them on over-the-air TV, just like the Wolves, who are now on Channel 11, 5 over-the-air television games. I know it's only a few, but it's a step in the right direction. And finally, I want to help in 2025 Major League Baseball's owners to find a new commissioner. Not a commissioner who is intent on putting his name in the record books and leaving a legacy behind, but putting out cockamamie ideas like a golden at bat rule. Bah humbug to that, I say.
Oh, boy. I know that Rob Manfred eagerly awaits your assistance.
Yes, he does.
All right. So you're looking out the windshield. I'll look in the rearview mirror one more time.
Okay.
At 2024. My top 4 personal sports moments. We'll go back to August 23rd. I happened to be fortunate, along with my son Ben, to be at Dodger Stadium that night. Shohei Ohtani steals his 40th base and hits his 40th home run, a walk-off grand slam, a magical moment that even the laid-back LA fans went gaga over. Now, let's go to October. I'm at a USC Minnesota football game, Huntington Bank Stadium. The Trojans at the time ranked 11th in the nation. And the Minnesota Gophers spring the upset. And I look down on the field turf, and there's a field rush. I mean, thousands of giddy Golden Gopher fans celebrating a huge win. I know USC wound up being very mediocre, but at that moment in time, it was special. Then a week later, I'm in Pasadena at the Rose Bowl. There's 30,000 people wearing maroon and gold. Gopher fans, most of them over 70, most of them who get the Denny's discount, saw their team win a game at the Rose Bowl. How about that? So the SoCal sweep actually did happen.
Very good. All right, Mr. Positive, we'll see you back in the Twin Cities next week. He's Eric Nelson. I'm Wally Langfellow. You've been watching 10,000 Takes, our special New Year's edition. Thanks for joining us.